The emergency lights flashed red across the wide chamber of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 17 different species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some whispered to each other with concern. Others sat in grim silence. Commander William Clark of the Galactic Council's Defense Authority stood at the center platform. His weathered face showed the strain of decades of military service. He tapped his control pad, and a three-dimensional map of the Nebulan star system appeared, above the council table. "The situation is critical," Clark said. "We received the distress call from the Valorians 6 hours ago. The Scourge Armada entered their system with over 200 warships. They have already destroyed the outer defense stations." A tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms rose from his seat. "How long until they reach the Valorian homeworld?" "Less than 3 days, Ambassador," Clark replied. "The Valorians have evacuated what civilians they can, but their defense fleet consists of only 40 ships. They cannot win this fight alone." The chamber filled with murmurs. The Scourge Armada was infamous throughout the galaxy. They were nomadic raiders who attacked vulnerable worlds, stripped them of resources, and moved on. No one knew where they came from originally. No one knew their true purpose beyond destruction. What everyone did know was that the Scourge never lost a battle. High Admiral Zixthar of the Praxians stood next. His species was known for their military might. 6 eyes blinked in sequence across his ridge-lined face as he examined the tactical display. "The Nebulon system is at the outer edge of Council space," Zixthar said. "My analysis shows that even our fastest ships would take at least 30 standard cycles to reach the Valorians. By then, it will be too late." A small, feathered being chirped from across the table. "Could we not send a small, fast rescue team? At least save some of their leadership?" Clark shook his head. "The Scourge have established a blockade. Nothing gets in or out." "This is terrible, but what can we do?" asked a crystalline being who sparkled under the chamber lights. "The Valorians knew the risks of settling in the outer systems. We warned them." Clark looked around the room with disappointment. "So the Council's position is to do nothing? To let a member species fall?" "Not nothing," said a reptilian diplomat. "We will issue the strongest possible condemnation. We will enforce sanctions against any who trade with the Scourge, and once they leave the system, we will provide aid to any survivors." Clark's shoulders dropped. This was the response he expected, but not the one he had hoped for. The Galactic Council was cautious by nature. Its members had seen enough war in their histories to prefer peace at almost any cost, even when that cost was paid by others. "Very well," Clark said. "I will prepare a formal statement of—" A young aide rushed into the chamber and handed Clark a datapad. His eyes widened as he read it. "Council members, I have just received an unexpected communication," Clark announced. "It appears that a fleet from Earth is positioned near the Nebulan system and is offering assistance to the Valorians." The chamber erupted with voices. "Earth? The humans?" asked Zixthar in disbelief. "They only achieved faster-than-light travel 80 years ago. What could they possibly do against the Scourge?" Clark activated the communication. A hologram appeared showing a woman in a dark blue uniform with silver shoulder markings. Her hair was cut short, and her expression was determined. "This is Admiral Samantha Powell of the Earth Space Navy," she said. "We've intercepted your communications regarding the Valorian situation. Our third fleet is positioned in nearby space conducting exploration operations. We can reach Nebulon in 48 hours. With your permission, we will respond to the distress call." The council members looked at each other in shock. "This must be a mistake," said the blue-skinned ambassador. "The humans have no significant military presence in this quadrant, or anywhere for that matter." "Apparently they do," Clark said quietly. He addressed the hologram. "Admiral Powell, this is Commander Clark of the Defense Authority. Your offer is appreciated, but you should understand that the Scourge Armada consists of over 200 battle-hardened warships. What forces do you have available?" "The third fleet includes 5 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 30 support vessels," Powell answered without hesitation. A wave of dismissive murmurs passed through the chamber. "Admiral," Zixthar said, with what almost sounded like pity, "your force would be outnumbered nearly 4-1. The Scourge used technology that has overwhelmed even our most advanced defense systems. I respect your courage, but this would be suicide." Powell smiled slightly. "Thank you for your concern, Admiral Zixthar. However, we believe we can be effective. The Scourge have never encountered Earthships before. They don't know our capabilities. We have the element of surprise." "And what exactly are your capabilities?" asked the crystalline being. "I'm afraid that's classified," Powell replied. "But we're not going in blind. We've studied the Scourge attack patterns from your database records. We've seen how they overwhelmed the Talari Defense Network last year, and the Proxima colonies before that." Clark looked at the council members. Most seemed skeptical, even amused by the humans' confidence. But Clark had studied Earth history during his diplomatic training. Humans had a unique perspective on warfare, one that the older species often underestimated. "Admiral Powell," Clark said, "the Defense Authority cannot officially sanction this action. The Council has not approved military intervention." Powell nodded. "I understand. Then we'll proceed without sanction. The Valorians asked for help. Someone needs to answer." Before anyone could protest, Powell continued, "Earth Fleet Command has authorized this mission. We're not seeking the Council's permission. We're merely informing you of our intentions as a courtesy. The Third Fleet will engage the Scourge in approximately 48 hours. Powell out." The hologram disappeared, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Zixthar spoke. "Commander Clark, what do you know of human military doctrine? Do they truly believe they can defeat the Scourge with such a small force?" Clark considered his answer carefully. "The humans have a saying, Admiral. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Throughout their history, they've often prevailed against superior numbers through unconventional tactics." "Well," said the reptilian diplomat with a dismissive wave, "I suppose we'll soon have one more tragedy to condemn. The humans will learn the hard way what happens when you face the Scourge." But as the council members filed out of the chamber, Clark noticed that a few of them looked thoughtful, even hopeful. Perhaps the humans would surprise them all, and perhaps, just perhaps, someone would finally stand against the Scourge and win. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Earth Space Navy's Third Fleet altered course toward Nebulan. On the bridge of the ESN Indomitable, Captain Alan Rodriguez looked at the star chart showing their destination. "Set course for the Nebulan system," he ordered. "Maximum speed, and alert all ships to prepare for combat operations. We have 48 hours to get ready." "Yes, sir," replied Executive Officer Susan White. "The crew is already running battle drills. Chief Engineer Franklin reports all systems at peak efficiency." Rodriguez nodded. "Good. The Valorians don't know us. The Scourge don't know us. But after this battle, the whole galaxy will know what happens when you back humanity into a corner." As the Indomitable's engines flared bright blue, Rodriguez whispered to himself, "And they'll learn what we do when innocent lives are at stake." The Third Fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, heading toward a battle that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Captain Alan Rodriguez stood in the briefing room of the ESN Indomitable, looking at the faces of his senior officers. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. A large display on the wall showed the Nebulan system and the positions of the Scourge Armada ships. "We have 36 hours until we reach Nebulan," Rodriguez said. "I want every crew member ready for combat. This won't be like our training exercises." Executive Officer Susan White nodded. "All departments report combat readiness, sir. The crew is focused." Tactical Officer Greg Morris stepped forward. He pointed to several red dots on the display. "The Scourge have positioned their ships in a standard blockade formation. Their main fleet surrounds the Valorian homeworld, while scout ships patrol the outer system." "What do we know about their weapons?" Rodriguez asked. "The Scourge use energy-based weapons similar to our plasma cannons, but with less precision," Morris explained. "Their shields are strong but fixed in frequency. That's their weakness. Our variable frequency shields give us an advantage. Chief Engineer Judy Franklin spoke next. I've analyzed the data on Scourge ships from previous battles. Their power systems run hot. They sacrifice efficiency for raw power. If we can force them into extended engagements, they'll start to overheat. Rodriguez nodded. Good. We'll use that. He turned to Communications Officer Peter Alvarez. Any word from the Valorians? Yes, sir, Alvarez replied. They're confused but grateful. They've never heard of humans before. They don't understand why we're helping when the Galactic Council wouldn't. Rodriguez smiled slightly. They'll understand soon enough. How are they holding up? Their orbital defenses are failing. They've evacuated many civilians to underground shelters, but their military is taking heavy losses. Rodriguez's face turned serious. Then we need to act fast. He pointed to the display. Here's the plan. We'll split our forces. The destroyers, led by the Valiant, will approach from the system's ecliptic plane. They'll draw attention and make it look like our main attack. He moved his hand across the display. Meanwhile, the Indomitable and our other cruisers will perform a micro-jump to this position, behind the Scourge's main fleet. We'll catch them in a crossfire. Susan White looked concerned. A micro-jump that precise is risky, sir. If our calculations are off by even a small amount, we could end up inside a planet or too close to the star. That's why we've been practicing them for the past year, Rodriguez replied. The Scourge won't expect it. No other species uses FTL jumps within a solar system. They think it's too dangerous. It is dangerous, Franklin said. But our navigation systems are more precise than anything the Council races use. We can do it. Rodriguez looked at each officer in turn. Any other concerns? Morris cleared his throat. Sir, even with the element of surprise, we're still outnumbered. The Scourge have never lost a major battle. There's a first time for everything, Rodriguez said firmly. Remember, we're not fighting just for the Valorians. Earth needs allies in this part of the galaxy. If we prove ourselves here, it changes everything for humanity's future. The officers nodded. They understood the stakes. One more thing, Rodriguez added. The Galactic Council is watching. They think we're going to fail. They think Earth is too young, too inexperienced to matter in galactic politics. His eyes narrowed. Let's show them how wrong they are. As the meeting ended, Rodriguez stayed behind with Susan White. What are you thinking, Alan? She asked once they were alone. Rodriguez sighed. I'm thinking about how much is riding on this. Earth has been developing in secret for decades, building ships, training crews, all while pretending to be just another minor species learning the basics of space travel. It was necessary, White said. If the older species knew our true capabilities, they might have seen us as a threat. And after this battle, they will know, Rodriguez pointed out. Everything changes. Are we ready for that? White put her hand on his shoulder. We've been ready for years. The Council races are stagnant. They've had the same technology, the same tactics for centuries. They've forgotten how to innovate, how to adapt. Rodriguez smiled. Like the Scourge. They've never lost because they've never faced an enemy who thinks differently. Exactly, White agreed. Now get some rest, Captain. You'll need it. After White left, Rodriguez studied the tactical display again. The plan was solid, but he knew from Earth's long history of warfare that no plan survived contact with the enemy. They would need to be flexible, creative, and brave. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Chief Engineer Franklin was working with her team to make final adjustments to the Indomitable's engines. Check the micro-jump calculations again, she told her assistant Ryan Cooper. I want triple verification. Cooper nodded and began running the numbers. Do you really think this will work, Chief? Taking on the Scourge? Franklin tightened a connection on an open panel. When I was in the academy, they taught us about Earth's history, about how our ancestors faced overwhelming odds and still found ways to win. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Siege of Bastonia, the Mars Rebellion. She closed the panel and wiped her hands on a cloth. Humans are good at being underdogs, Ryan. We've had thousands of years of practice. Across the ship, similar conversations were happening. The crew of the Indomitable, like all of Earth's space navy, were the best humanity had to offer. They came from all parts of Earth, bringing different perspectives and ideas. This diversity was humanity's greatest strength, one that the older, more homogeneous species of the Galactic Council didn't understand or value. On the bridge, Tactical Officer Morris was working late, studying everything known about Scourge battle tactics. They always attack in groups of 3, he muttered to himself. They always target the largest enemy ships first. They never retreat, even when it would be logical. He smiled as a plan formed in his mind. Predictable enemies were vulnerable enemies. As the Earth fleet approached the Nebulan system, the Valorians watched their long-range sensors with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Help was coming from the most unexpected source, a species so new to interstellar travel that most Valorians had never even heard of them. On the Valorian homeworld, Prime Minister Alara stood in their defense headquarters, watching the holographic display showing the approaching Earth ships. "Can these humans really help us?" she asked General Tarn, her military advisor. Tarn looked uncertain. "Their ships are small by Council standards, but our sensors detect unusual energy readings from them. Their technology seems different." "Different? How?" "I'm not sure," Tarn admitted. "But they're moving faster than should be possible for vessels their size, and their communication systems cut through the Scourge jamming as if it wasn't even there." Alara watched the display silently. The beautiful blue-green world outside was scarred by Scourge attacks. Cities burned. Millions of her people were hiding underground, terrified. The Galactic Council had abandoned them. These humans were their last hope. "Send them a message," she told Tarn. Tell them thank you for coming, and may their gods protect them, because they're about to face the most terrible enemy in known space." As the Earth fleet raced toward Nebulon, the Scourge Armada continued its methodical destruction of Valorian defenses, completely unaware that their unbroken record of victories was about to be challenged. War Chief Freck stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Ravager. His gray, scaled skin reflected the red emergency lights that flashed across the bridge. Before him, a large view screen showed the Valorian homeworld. Fires burned across its surface where Scourge weapons had struck cities and defense installations. "Status report," Freck demanded, his voice deep and harsh. His second-in-command, Sub-Chief Morg, stepped forward. "The Valorian orbital defenses are at 30% capacity. Their ground-based weapons are still causing some damage to our lower ships. We've lost 11 frigates and 3 destroyers." Freck made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. "Acceptable losses. Their resistance will end soon. Prepare the harvest ships." The Scourge had attacked dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Their pattern was always the same. First, they destroyed military targets. Then they landed ground forces to capture important resources. Finally, their massive harvest ships would descend to strip the planet of valuable minerals, leaving behind a barren wasteland. "War Chief," called a sensor officer, her voice urgent. "We have detected unknown vessels approaching the system." Freck turned sharply. "Unknown vessels? From where?" "They entered from the southern quadrant," the officer replied. "Configuration doesn't match any known Council species." "Show me," Freck ordered. The view screen changed to show a group of ships moving rapidly toward the Nebulon system. They were sleek and angular, painted dark blue with white markings. Their design was unlike anything the Scourge had seen before. "How many?" asked Freck. 12 smaller vessels approaching directly," the officer said. "Long-range sensors detect 5 larger, ships holding position at the edge of the system." Freck laughed, showing his sharp teeth. "A pathetic rescue attempt, probably mercenaries hired by wealthy Valorians." He turned to Morg. "Send a frigate squadron to eliminate them. Make it quick." Morg bowed and gave the orders. 12 Scourge frigates broke formation and moved toward the approaching Earth ships. On the bridge of the ESN Valiant, Commander Lisa Ortiz watched the Scourge frigates approaching. "They took the bait," she said, "exactly as Captain Rodriguez predicted." Her tactical officer nodded. "They've sent 12 frigates just like we expected. Their standard response to unknown threats." Ortiz smiled. Let's show them that we're not a standard threat. Activate electronic countermeasures. Weapons free. Across the 12 Earth destroyers, crews moved with practiced efficiency. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of the Scourge, Earth ships operated with flexible command structures. Officers were trained to think independently and adapt to changing situations. As the Scourge frigates came within weapons range, they fired first, bright beams of energy cutting through space toward the Earth ships. But the beams didn't hit their targets. The Earth ships moved in unpredictable patterns, their engines allowing maneuvers that the Scourge had never seen before. At the same time, electronic signals from the Earth vessels confused the Scourge targeting systems. Return fire, ordered Ortiz. Target their propulsion systems. The Earth destroyers fired their weapons. Unlike the energy beams used by most species, Earth ships used a combination of kinetic projectiles and guided missiles. These weapons bypassed the Scourge shields, which were designed to stop energy attacks. In the command center of the Galactic Council observation post, representatives from several species watched the battle in stunned silence. The Earth ships moved with incredible coordination, focusing their fire on one Scourge frigate at a time. Impossible, whispered High Admiral Zixthar. Those human vessels shouldn't be capable of such maneuvers. And their weapons. Commander Clark stood beside him, watching with quiet satisfaction. Humans have always been good at finding new ways to solve old problems, Admiral. Back in the battle, the Earth destroyers continued their attack. 3 Scourge frigates were already disabled, their engines destroyed by precise strikes. On the E, Ravager War Chief Vrek received the news with growing anger. How are they doing this? He demanded. Our frigates report their targeting systems are malfunctioning. They can't get clear locks on the enemy vessels. The unknown ships are using some kind of electronic warfare we haven't encountered before, Morg explained. And their weapons are bypassing our shields. Vrek slammed his fist on a console. Send more ships, all remaining frigates and 4 destroyer squadrons. Crush them. But before the reinforcements could be deployed, something unexpected happened. The 5 larger Earth ships, which had been holding position at the edge of the system, suddenly disappeared from the Scourge sensors. Where did they go? Vrek shouted. Find them! On the Indomitable, Captain Rodriguez felt the subtle vibration as the cruiser completed its micro-jump. The view on the main screen changed instantly from open space to show the rear of the main. Scourge fleet, jump successful, reported the navigation officer. All 5 cruisers in position. Rodriguez nodded in satisfaction. Perfect. The Scourge are focused on our destroyer group. They don't know we're here. He turned to Tactical Officer Morris. Target their command ships. Fire when ready. The 5 Earth cruisers opened fire simultaneously, their advanced weapons striking the unprepared Scourge vessels from behind. The surprise was complete. On the Valorian homeworld, General Tarn watched the sensor readings with amazement. The human ships just appeared behind the Scourge fleet, he told Prime Minister Ilara. They must have used some kind of short-range, faster-than-light jump. I didn't think that was possible inside a solar system. Ilara watched the battle unfold with growing hope. These humans are full of surprises. The battle continued to shift in Earth's favor. The Scourge ships, designed for straightforward attacks against predictable enemies, struggled to deal with the unconventional tactics of the Earth fleet. Aboard the Ravager, chaos erupted as systems failed under the precision strikes from the Earth cruisers. We're taking heavy damage, Morg reported, his voice strained. 3 dreadnoughts have lost power. Our rear shields are failing. Vrek couldn't believe what was happening. The Scourge had never faced defeat, never had to retreat. His mind struggled to accept the reality before him. Who are these humans? He snarled. How can their ships be so powerful? War Chief, we should withdraw and regroup, Morg suggested carefully. We can return with more ships. Vrek considered this for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. Send the order. All ships to fall back to Rally Point Delta. It was the first retreat order given in the history of the Scourge Armada. As the battle continued, news spread quickly through the Galactic Council. Representatives who had dismissed the humans as primitives now watched in awe as Earth's ships dominated the battlefield against an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for years. "Perhaps," said Commander Clark to the stunned council members, "it's time for the council to reconsider humanity's role in galactic affairs." The Earth fleet pressed their advantage, continuing to strike the retreating Scourge ships. On the Indomitable, Captain Rodriguez watched with grim satisfaction. The first phase of the battle was won, but he knew the Scourge would return with greater numbers. "Send word to Admiral Powell," he ordered. "Request reinforcements from the First and Second Fleets. This battle isn't over yet." Across the galaxy, other Earth fleets were already preparing to move. Humanity had revealed itself at last, and the galaxy would never be the same. War Chief Freck paced the damaged bridge of the Ravager. Emergency repairs were underway around him as crew members rushed to restore failed systems. The ship shuddered occasionally as damaged power conduits sparked and failed. "This is unacceptable," Freck growled. "The Scourge do not retreat, we do not lose battles." Sub-Chief Morg stood at a safe distance, aware of his leader's dangerous mood. "The humans use tactics we've never encountered, War Chief. Their technology is different from the Council races." Freck stopped pacing and turned to his tactical display. The remains of his once mighty fleet had regrouped at Rally Point Delta, safely away from the Nebulon system. Almost 50 ships had been lost or severely damaged in the battle. "Show me the human vessels again," he ordered. The display changed to show recordings of the Earth ships in action. Freck studied their movements, their weapons, their defenses. "They are vulnerable," he said finally. "Their shields weaken when they fire their main weapons. Their smaller ships have blind spots in their sensor arrays." His eyes narrowed. "And they care too much about protecting each other. We can use that against them." Morg nodded. "What are your orders, War Chief?" "Recall all Scourge ships in the sector. We will return to Nebulon with our full strength." Freck's voice was cold and determined. "These humans may have won the first battle, but they will not win the war." Meanwhile, in the Nebulon system, the Earth fleet was helping the Valorians repair their orbital defenses. The Indomitable had docked at the main Valorian space station, and Captain Rodriguez was meeting with Prime Minister Alara and her advisors. "We are forever grateful for your intervention, Captain," Alara said. Her tall, slender form bowed slightly in the traditional Valorian gesture of respect. "But I must ask, why did Earth come to our aid when the Council would not?" Rodriguez looked around the ornate meeting chamber. The walls were decorated with intricate patterns that told the history of the Valorian people, their evolution from simple sea creatures to a spacefaring civilization. "Earth believes in protecting those who cannot protect themselves," Rodriguez replied. "And we know what it's like to be considered unimportant by older, more established powers." General Tarn, the head of Valorian military forces, stepped forward. "The Scourge will return, Captain, they always do. And when they come back, they will bring more ships." "We know," Rodriguez said. "That's why we've requested reinforcements. Earth's First and Second Fleets are already on their way." This news caused surprised murmurs among the Valorians. Alara looked shocked. "You have more fleets? The Council intelligence reports suggest Earth only has a small defensive force." Rodriguez smiled. "The Council sees what we want them to see, Prime Minister. Earth has been building its forces in secret for decades. We knew that someday we would need to defend ourselves, or others, against threats like the Scourge." On the Indomitable, Chief Engineer Judy Franklin worked alongside Valorian engineers to help repair their defense systems. The Valorians were surprised by her knowledge of their technology. "How do you understand our system so well?" asked Valorian engineer Kelvita. Franklin connected 2 power conduits and checked the energy flow. "Earth has been studying all the species in the galaxy. For years, we believe in being prepared. The Council thinks your species is too young to be taken seriously," Kelv said. Franklin laughed. "That's exactly why we've been able to develop our technology without interference. Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage." In another part of the station, Tactical Officer Greg Morris was teaching Valorian Defense Forces how to counter Scourge targeting systems. "Their sensors operate on predictable frequencies," Morris explained, showing a diagram to the Valorian officers. "If you vary your shield resonance patterns like this, You can reduce the effectiveness of their weapons by nearly 40%. A Valorian commander looked impressed. This could save many lives. Why hasn't the Council developed such countermeasures? The Council races have been using the same technology for centuries, Morris replied. They've stopped looking for new solutions. Humans are still explorers at heart. We're always looking for better ways to do things. As the repairs and preparations continued, a Galactic Council diplomatic vessel arrived in the system. High Admiral Zixthar requested permission to board the Valorian station and meet with the Earth officers. In the station's main conference room, Zixthar faced Captain Rodriguez across a large table. Commander Clark was also present, representing the Council's Defense Authority. Captain Rodriguez Zixthar began, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. The Council is impressed by your victory against the Scourge. We had no idea Earth possessed such military capabilities. That was intentional, Admiral, Rodriguez replied calmly. Earth learned early on that new species are often seen as threats by established powers. We chose to appear less advanced than we are. Zixthar shifted uncomfortably. The Council would like to offer a formal alliance with Earth. We believe that together, we could finally defeat the Scourge permanently. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. A few days ago, the Council didn't think the Valorians were worth saving. What changed? Reality changed, Captain, Commander Clark interjected. You've shown the Council that humanity is a force to be reckoned with. They're finally paying attention. Before Rodriguez could respond, alarm sirens blared throughout the station. Executive Officer Susan White's voice came over the communication system. Captain, long-range sensors have detected multiple Scourge vessels entering the system. They've brought their entire fleet. Rodriguez stood immediately. How many ships? Over 500, sir. Including 5 dreadnoughts. Zixthar looked stunned. 500? The Scourge have never committed so many ships to one battle. Rodriguez turned to his officers. Return to the ship, battle stations. He looked back at Zixthar. Admiral, if you want an alliance, now would be a good time to prove it. Call every Council ship within range. We're going to need them. As the Earth officers rushed back to their vessels, Prime Minister Alara approached Rodriguez. Can you defeat so many, Captain? She asked, worry clear in her voice. Rodriguez's face was grim but determined. I don't know, Prime Minister, but we'll give them a fight they'll never forget. Aboard the Indomitable, the crew prepared for battle once more. The ship hummed with activity as weapons were checked, shields were calibrated, and engines were pushed to full power. In her engineering section, Chief Franklin worked frantically to squeeze every bit of performance from the ship's systems. The power couplings won't handle this much stress for long, she told her assistant, Ryan Cooper. How long will they last? Cooper asked. Franklin wiped sweat from her forehead. Long enough for us to win, or long enough for us to die trying. On the bridge, Rodriguez watched the tactical display as the massive Scourge fleet approached. The Earth ships were outnumbered 10-1, and their reinforcements were still days away. All ships formed defensive positions around the Valorian homeworld, he ordered. We stand together. As the Scourge fleet filled the view screen, Rodriguez thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of facing overwhelming odds. One phrase from ancient Earth history came to mind, words spoken by a captain facing a much larger enemy force. Today is a good day to die. But Rodriguez added his own thought. And an even better day to win. Space around the Valorian homeworld lit up with weapons fire. The massive Scourge fleet pressed forward, their ships forming attack patterns that had conquered countless worlds before. Against them stood the Earth fleet, now joined by a handful of Valorian vessels and 3 Galactic Council ships that had answered Zixthar's urgent call. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Rodriguez studied the tactical display. The situation looked grim. Despite their superior technology, the Earth ships were vastly outnumbered. Status report, Rodriguez called out. Shields at 80%, replied Susan White. All weapons systems operational. The Valiant and Resolute are engaging Scourge destroyers on the eastern flank. Tactical Officer Morris looked up from his station. Sir, the Scourge are using different tactics this time. They're focusing on our destroyers first. Not our cruisers. Rodriguez nodded. They've learned from the first battle. They're adapting. He turned to Communications Officer Alvarez. Any word from our reinforcements? Yes, sir. Admiral Powell reports the first and second fleets are 12 hours away. Rodriguez frowned. We need to hold until then. All ships execute defensive pattern Echo. Protect the Valorian homeworld at all costs. The Earth ships moved into a new formation, creating layers of defense. Unlike the rigid formations used by the Council races, Earth ships constantly shifted positions, making it difficult for the Scourge to predict their movements. On the Ravager, War Chief Rek watched the battle unfold. This time, he was prepared for the humans' tricks. The human vessels change shield frequencies when they fire their main weapons, he told his commanders. Time your attacks to coincide with their weapons' discharge. The Scourge ships began to coordinate their attacks more effectively, causing damage to several Earth destroyers. The battle grew more intense as both sides adapted their tactics. In the engineering section of the Indomitable, alarms blared as power systems strained under the constant barrage. Reroute power from non-essential systems, Chief Franklin shouted, over the noise. We need to keep the shields at maximum. Her team worked frantically, bypassing damaged circuits and reinforcing critical systems. The ship shuddered as it took multiple hits from Scourge weapons. Back on the bridge, Rodriguez received reports from across the fleet. 2 Earth destroyers had been heavily damaged. A Valorian defense platform had been destroyed. The Scourge were slowly pushing through their defenses. Sir, said White urgently, we can't maintain this position much longer. Rodriguez's mind raced, searching for options. Then he remembered something from Earth's military history, a desperate tactic used by an outnumbered force. Get me, Admiral. Zixthar, he ordered. When the Praxian Admiral's face appeared on the screen, Rodriguez spoke quickly. Admiral, I need your remaining Council ships to fall back to the Valorian moon. Make it look like you're retreating. Zixthar looked confused. Fall back? That would leave a gap in our defenses. Exactly, Rodriguez said. The Scourge will see it as weakness and commit more ships to that sector. When they do, we'll spring our trap. The Admiral hesitated, then nodded. I hope you know what you're doing, Captain. As the Council ships began to withdraw, Rodriguez contacted the captains of his 5 cruisers. Prepare for simultaneous micro-jumps. On my mark. Target coordinates are being transmitted now. In space, the battle continued to rage. The Scourge, seeing the apparent retreat of the Council ships, redirected a large portion of their fleet to exploit the weakness. Just as Rodriguez had predicted, War Chief Rek couldn't resist the opportunity to break through their lines. Now, Rodriguez ordered. In an instant, the 5 Earth cruisers disappeared from their positions and reappeared directly in the middle of the advancing Scourge fleet. They immediately began firing in all directions, their weapons tearing through the unprepared Scourge vessels at point-blank range. Confusion spread through the Scourge formation as their ships tried to maneuver in the suddenly crowded space. Many collided with each other, causing further damage and chaos. On the Ravager, Rek watched in horror as his carefully planned attack fell apart. How did they get there? He demanded. No ship can jump with such precision. From the Valorian Command Center, Prime Minister Ilara and General Tarn watched the battle in amazement. The humans jumped their largest ships directly into the enemy. Formation, Tarn said, his voice filled with awe. I've never seen such a tactic. Ilara nodded. They risk their own ships to protect our world. We will never forget this sacrifice. The battle reached its peak intensity as the Earth cruisers fought at the heart of the Scourge fleet. The Indomitable took heavy damage but continued to fight. Power flickered across the ship as systems failed and were restored by Franklin's engineering team. Shields down to 30%, White reported on the bridge. Hull breaches on decks, 7 through 9. Rodriguez gripped his chair as the ship rocked from another impact. Keep firing, we need to hold on. Just when it seemed the Earth ships would be overwhelmed, new contacts appeared on the long-range sensors. Captain, Alvarez called out. It's the First Fleet. They've arrived early. On the main screen, dozens of fresh Earth warships dropped, out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. In the lead was the massive battleship ESN Defender, twice the size of the Indomitable. Admiral Powell's voice came through the communication system. "Sorry we're late, Captain Rodriguez. Looks like you started the party without us." Relief washed over Rodriguez's face. "Your timing is perfect, Admiral." The arrival of Earth's first fleet changed the battle completely. The fresh ships tore into fray. The disorganized Scourge forces, which were still trying to deal with the cruisers in their midst. War Chief Reck knew when a battle was lost. "All ships, emergency withdrawal," he ordered. "Retreat to safe coordinates." As the Scourge fleet began to disengage and flee, cheers erupted across the Earth and Valorian ships. For the first time in recorded history, the Scourge Armada had been decisively defeated. The Indomitable limped back to the Valorian space station, its hull scarred and blackened from battle damage. Medical teams rushed to treat the wounded as repair crews worked to stabilize critical systems. In the station's Grand Hall, a formal ceremony took place 3 days later. Prime Minister Alara stood before Captain Rodriguez and his officers, along with Admiral Powell and representatives from the Galactic Council. "The Valorian people owe our continued existence to Earth," Alara said, her voice carrying through the packed hall. "When the Council believed us lost, when no one else would come to our aid, Earth's warships dominated the field of battle and saved our civilization." She presented Rodriguez with the highest honor of the Valorian people, a crystal medallion that glowed with an inner light. "From this day forward, Earth and Valoria are bound as allies and friends," she declared. High Admiral Zixthar stepped forward next. "The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to offer Earth full membership with all rights and privileges. We recognize that we have much to learn from humanity." Rodriguez accepted both honors with humility. "Earth didn't fight for recognition or status," he said. "We fought because it was right. Because every species deserves protection from threats like the Scourge." As the ceremony concluded, Rodriguez found himself looking out a viewport at the stars. The battle had changed everything. Humanity was no longer an overlooked newcomer to the galactic community. Earth had proven its worth, not just through military might, but through courage and compassion. In the years that followed, the alliance between Earth, Valoria, and the Council grew stronger. Together they pushed the Scourge back to the fringes of known space. Earth ships began to appear throughout the galaxy, not just as warships, but as explorers, traders, and diplomats. And across countless worlds, people told the story of how, when all seemed lost, when they thought no one would arrive, Earth's warships dominated the field.